How could I knew that this would go so totally wrong? Didn't I look close enough at the details? Didn't I see the signs? Was I walking too blindly, not seeing the edge I was standing at? It was back in the year 2013. Maybe some of you remember it as a great summer, lots of sunshine and parties. And I started as a young IT professional into my first project. It was a time when new JavaScript frameworks popped up like mushrooms, and you just had to grab them and try them out. And so I started into my first project, and there I met him. Let's call him Andrew for a second. He wasn't that tall, but he was handsome, lovely to go with, enjoyable. So we programmed together, did this project, fixed bugs, and finally relaunched. But it went on. We started to spend our free time together, and I started to think, wow, this is amazing. This has a great future. We will be together, we will do things, and this is amazing. So I started to talk about him, about the future, our future, but he wasn't sure even about his future. So he wasn't even knowing anything about our future. So I got nervous. My mind started to call, and I was like, why? No? Why not? This is amazing. This should, like, we are a good team. We should be together. We should be a couple. I thought, like, come on, calm down. But still in my imagination, he was a hero. He would take a sword. He would fight for me. Why so ever did he always carry this powerful red shield with him? He couldn't protect me. On a Black Thursday, on a conference in Paris, you might remember, my hopes and dreams crashed with a big dong, 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 dong. My heart was broken, but I still wanted to fight for that. I thought, still, even that so many parts were gone, couldn't we stay together? But we both realized we could stay together, but this wouldn't make any of us happy anymore. So there, sad, heartbroken, and promised to myself, never again I will rely on one single framework, even if its surname is Google. So what to do? First of all, I did what many people do when they break up. I got a new haircut. And then I looked for new opportunities. And I found a new opportunity, a nice company. Maybe some of you know it. It's called gutefrage.net. It's a German company. It's similar to Quora in America. So I met with them, and they showed me their website. It looked like that at that time. Maybe some remember in old nostalgia how this was. It's just question and answers. You see, they had some problems there. They had some listings where you could find questions you would like to answer or you were interested in. And that was it. But they realized now this code base is 11 years old. They started small and very passionate with a small team, developing more and more sites, more and more parts. The community grew, many people were there. They had new features, and they were so curious, they built all the features they could imagine they built. And so at one point, they had to coordinate all that. And they realized, oh, now we have some dependencies here and dependencies there. We can't just, oh, it's getting complex. And now we have side effect. If we change on one side, some other side will be affected when we have no clue. So what do we need? Processes. So they had a PHP release process. It's nearly a celebration of a whole afternoon. You can do that, and don't leave the office before it's finished. So this was, of course, killing innovation. No one wanted to release, so you tried to build something and hope someone else also built something and had to release. So you could sneak your code in. But then, of course, every time someone new came, you had to onboard him, and this was slow. And not even was it slow and took his time. This nice person would one time look at the configuration and say, oh, that's an old version. You should migrate. You lost a bit of friendship there. And they realized after 11 years, after they so passionately started with the technology that was so modern at that time, it's not going on. So what they did, of course, microservices to the rescue. You're all here, you know that. Just keep it simple, stupid, let's move on. So they did that. Before I came, they already evolved. Like, they came from this all is in one place, and we just grab and put things in. And they started like, okay, at least shift out the front-end part and care about the backend. So what can we do at the backend? Yes, let's do microservices. And they did this. It's nice and wonderful. You have an API. As a front-end developer, it's super easy. You look at the API, you know where to get your data from. You have your backend for the front-end and the front-end. The front-end got messier and messier and had to deal with all those stuff. So what to do? Of course, introduce microservices in the front-end. This is super easy, isn't it? It's the same, front-end, backend, don't care. Two problems. There's a user, and he thinks this is one company, this needs to be the one website. It should look the same, it should behave the same, and it always should know who I am, on what I'm just doing, it should know my session, all the stuff. That's a bit tricky. But it gets even trickier. So I think all of you could deal with that. Just pretend, make a nice thing in the front, and deal with that in the backend. No worries. But then you have to use front-end technology. And front-end technology is not at all built for this use case. So what we now try to do is to sneak around. So as we are looking for some new, we start like look at all those approaches and have a little face-to-face and ask them how they're doing. So what you could do, first of all, is like the hardcore approach. You can just slice. You just build completely different things for the completely different parts. So you have a home part, you have a content part, completely different applications, nothing to do with each other. Some of you might already have that when they have an administration area, so you log in, completely new application. So that's a really nice approach. You can just link between those. If you look at one of those pages, you would just have a super stupid normal HTML. No special technology, and there you go. You already have then micro frontends. If that works for you, go. It's now awesome. It won't get better than this. But if you can't, sorry, let's have a more close look about requirements. So if you're fine, that's fine, but maybe you have some more requirements. So who of you likes TDD or BDD style? Any fans of this awesome approach? Great. This is just for you. I did tests. So I put all my requirements in there and test against the different approaches. This is like checklist for speed dating. Let's see if that works. So we wanted to have team ownership. Awesome, team ownership, completely independent. You can have them across the whole world, no problem. You can deploy independently. You can have several separate servers, no worries. It runs independently, no problems. Doesn't have any technology. You can have a React and a Vue and something else, something really old-fashioned, some PHP. And it's fast loading. You only ship what you need at that moment. You have a native support. No worries, super fine. If this is your requirement, wonderful. But you can't share basics there. It's not modular. You can't reuse anything. and it will be hard to maintain your corporate identity. And it won't be smooth in between those. You do a completely new reload, you can't reuse anything from before. But at the end, 6 passing tests. That's quite super cool for something. I mean, if you start a day and have already 6 passing tests with the first approach, that's nice. But maybe we can do better. First, sharing basics. We can have like the header and the footer be consistent and just have iframes in between. Matthias before mentioned the frame set, that's also in there. That's also a possibility. What you could else do is have a CMS system that just gives you back those parts that everybody uses. For example, Telefonica is using that. That's a quite nice approach. You get those benefits. What else? Some are brave, like AutoScout 24 was that brave, doing server-side includes. So this is like the first approach. You see, okay, what we do in the browser, maybe we can do it a bit earlier and already do it on the server side. So we know a bit more about the user on the server side, so we can already integrate there. So from like integrating in the browser, we now integrate on the server side. So we have different servers. And depending on which route he wants, we just call each other and grab everything together, build one website, and nicely ship it. So if you now look at that code, you have to have a special language that knows how to do that, but it will just simply go to that navigation and content and sidebar, request, hey, give me your HTML, your JavaScript, and your CSS, and I'll just compose everything together and ship it. That's quite nice. So let's run our test against that. First, we all meet, but it's not fast loading, because we have to wait for every part to come back to us. So if one is lazy, the complete page will be slow. We don't have native support. We have to have this language, and we again have this central station where it all needs to compose. So this might also grow somehow over time. As you said, we all love global, so we all put it in there. Nice. But the rest we met, only the smooth user interaction we haven't met yet. Because it's always, again, a complete page reload. But from 6 to 7, I mean, a bit change in the tests, but also nice. But still, we are now a bit stuck. We can improve maybe a bit about the fast loading, but then it's gone. So this was my first 2 candidates. Not really convinced. Maybe we have to change the perspective. Let's go more to the client side. There must be something we can do. JavaScript is so amazing and fancy, we must have to do something there. At first idea, we go back and integrate on the code level. We just modularize everything nicely, and then we bundle it and ship it to the user. That's like all the single page application approaches you might know, so that's quite nice. We just integrate on our side, and when it comes to the user, it's all there. Great, so let's test that. Still, it's just not running independently, but maybe we can don't need that so much. It's not technology agnostic, you have to use the same framework everywhere. It needs to somehow compose at some point. It's not fast loading because you ship your whole website. If he just wants one information, you ship maybe the complete checkout process, even if he never checks out, because your page is already too slow in the beginning. But you read the rest. Quite nice, still some passing. Different approach. You can still do something. So you can lazy load, so you don't ship the complete bundle. You more have maybe a guessing of routings and just bring those in the beginning and then lazy load the other stuff. And what's really nice and fancy, you can have web components. Who of you has ever heard of web components? Oh, so many. Nice. So what they're doing, you can write basically your own HTML tags, which is really nice because it looks nice and it's understandable. You see that, you will know what it does. That's super cool. We can now do your own web components. So how does it look? Yes, for most of you, you will see callback and think of hell. And yeah, that's close. But at least you can do it. And if you look at an example, we can have this created callback, so our element gets created. So we maybe add an input field and a submit button, and we listen to this. So this is maybe a newsletter registration or something else. For us, let's just name it content. And then when something happens, we can listen to the submit and do whatever we want. But we have our nice independent component. So in the end, we have our website, and this content will be there. We can also have different versions of components, so we can just hand over data for those components to work. That's very nice. So at this point, you can already put your own web components. You could even have teams that are providing web components, and everybody else can use those components. Great. But still, we were thinking, like, really? It has its drawbacks and benefits, but still, couldn't there be anything better for us? Looking out of the window, we saw something that they called app shell, and we were like, app shell, that's nice. What's that? So also here you integrate in the browser, but maybe do it in a bit clever way. So what you do, so let's assume someone comes and wants the content part. He goes to your server, and now you're already independent of what he wants. You give him the app shell. Like, you give him already a basic frame. So you already see something, you can indicate that more things are coming, and you can already build. And you always have a context, which is very nice for all your sessions, maybe for notifications, for stuff you have on every side. This might already all be in here. Like, when you think of the iframe, this would be the stuff around the iframe. So it's like a bit more modern approach to that. So now that he has the app shell, we can say, oh, what did you really wanted? You wanted the content part. So we look at the routing and see, okay, routing goes here. So let's go to that server. So we approach that nice content server and say, hey, content server, what shall we do? So he says, here's my manifest. And you look at that, okay, I need a bundle min and a style min CSS. I'll grab those. So the app shell will see this and grab that stuff. And then we still have to tell those code, like, yeah, now you can run. So we have, this is like then a convention. This is just how we try to do it. You can have other modifications. We just chose an application URL, a path, and some dependencies we want to hand over. So we make sure, like, here is like a bit like, here's your working desk. So you have a telephone, you can call the others, and you have a nice part, like this path, this is your routing area, where you can then do what you want. So every sub-routing, whatever. Awesome. So let's now run the tests again. We are hoping for the best. Very promising. Technology agnostic, I didn't make it green. I think it's still, you have some technologies somewhere, especially when you share parts. But apart from that, if this content inside the app shell is completely reloaded, it's also completely forgotten if you reload something new. So if you load an Angular application and then realize the user goes somewhere else, you completely destroy that app. It's gone. And then you can happily load also another version of that Angular, or you could load a React app. They will never conflict. This is only true when you replace the whole container. If you want to have an approach where you load like different web components inside, they might have, at one point, some versions might have difficulties. But except that, it's fine. You can share basic, and you can be modular, but still all those might have some technology they use. So in our case, we have Preact, and of course, if you use that component, it comes with that technology. But you can also have more of that. At least you can share the CSS. That's nice. So 7 passing, 3 challenges. That looks much better. So second round. Let's see if this really fits what we wanted. So In 2007, we had already launched our logged out area. So if you come from Google, search something, and you come to the website, that's nice. It's SEO optimized. You get a single page every time, so it's super fast, it's server rendered, and you have this single technology stack. Fine. But we were thinking about logged in, and logged in is in comparison much bigger because you log in, you have your functionalities, you might have moderation functions, you want to create and delete, so there's much more going on, and especially more JavaScript involved. So in the first meeting, we were like, okay, which framework to choose? And everybody thought of his most preferred JavaScript framework. I didn't think of Angular, but still. So we realized we either now fight for one technology or we create something that is technology agnostic. And that's what we wanted to. So we tried that. And we also wanted to be fast, especially for heavy users. They might spend 2 hours on the platform just answering questions, and we wanted to have that most fast for them and not have like 200 of new page requests where they always get the same stuff they already have. So let's see. This is a screenshot of our first version. It's already quite nice. You see this header stays. When you click on something, the header just doesn't reload, only the content reloads. So you already have a quite nice experience in comparison to the old one. If you do the same, here the first, so the old one was a bit faster in the beginning, but then you see every time it completely reloads. And you have this problem of flickering, and you ship far too much. So this was our first version. And now I try to switch to a live demo. Nope. Let's see if that works. So let's make sure I don't have anything in the cache. If I now go to old page, with the old technology, you see it just reloads here. If you look at the JavaScript, it gets some JavaScript. If I go somewhere else, completely new reload, tries again. Some things they can grab from the cache, but still we have far too much. If we now look at the new with the app shell, you already see we have the possibility to do this nice indication of its loading, and you get much less. And here you already see the manifest file. I can make that bigger. So here we asked the question, like the question micro frontend for logged in, hey, what shall we load? And he tells us, these 2 files you have to load. And that's what it does in the background. So when we now go to somewhere else, see, it just stays. You don't have to load anything else because we're staying in the same microservice. If you're now, for example, going to the home, you see a new one, this one, and also a new manifest. Where's the new one? Here it is, I'm sorry. A new manifest with 2 new files we had to grab for the different microservice. Great. So let's see. Wherever you move now, it will always just fetch the content. So if you look to, let's see, where is it? So here you see this page, I'm sorry, has just 15 kilobytes. So every time he requests a new page and there's everything already there, it's just the pure content, because the styling is there, the JavaScript is there, and what's missing is just this little bit of HTML. Here, we just load that. That's nice. And yep. If we compare it to what we had before, somehow the order is different than I assumed. I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Here it is. So this was the page. If it is a complete page, that's 37. No, 33, I'm sorry. 73. Great. So let's see. So we now saw all those benefits. And if we run again the test against that, it's nice. What we only don't do yet is run independently, because it's not necessary yet, but we could. And we have all those other wonderful benefits. So that's quite nice. If you now think for your use case, maybe is this suiting? What are the costs? What is coming with it? Yes, it is a more complex environment. If you come from your monolith and maybe you are fine with that, don't get me wrong there. But you get a more complex environment. You get some redundancy because you have that microservices. You have to provide something there. You have to put real thought into the build scripts, especially with front-end technology. That's not that easy. And you have to have error handling. So somehow some of those microservices might fail, and now you have to deal with it. Before, you were just sending out a blank message, but now you have to be a bit nicer. And you, of course, have shared dependencies, especially if your UI elements you want to share, they will maybe all connect, or you choose to copy and paste and everybody is on his own. Not sure if this will work out in the whole run. But what you gain? You have a much faster onboarding. So one of my colleagues was ready in a week to just do stuff. It's easy. You can just start with one micro frontend, doing something. So you realize how the system works, and off you go. You're independent. Each team can choose their technology, what they like. They completely go for them. And they can try out stuff. You don't have to have something already introduced to your whole application. Just one from micro frontend can try it out, see if this works, if it's beneficial. If yes, you can adopt. If no, it just silently fails there. You have a much easier testing and a much faster testing because you're just testing one unit. You're resilient, so even maybe if one micro frontend has some problems, all the others will be there. And it's future-proof, so if you have a new, coolest, nicest thing coming up, you can try it out. You don't have to migrate the full one. So it's maintainable there. Great. So if you're now like, yeah, maybe that's something I want to do as well. Maybe our front end is also growing too big and it's like a central point where we have problems, where we're stuck, then first, of course, be open. And then look around. So I did a collection of all the talks already given. You can also see 2 from 2 years ago from this conference. And you can have a look there. What are the others doing? Some more examples, some more approaches that were already tried out. You mostly, or you often also see from which company they're coming, so you can have a look at their website if that's something that you want as well. And I did a list of all useful links, article stuff, so you can just go there and explore more. There's much more to realize what's going on, also what other companies already did. So also some Twitter stuff, so you can like try to see what's going on. I think it's a fast-moving topic there. So you can also start from there. So we did our own approach. We didn't use any framework for the micro frontends for this app shell thing, but there's a lot around. So you can have a look. Maybe that's already suiting your needs. There's also this. Oh yeah, we have some time. We can look at that. So I think for many use cases, this might eventually already be what you're looking for. So they just integrated several frameworks which are quite similar approach. They're completely reloading the inside. So here are different frameworks they tried out, so they all work happily together. So this will now grab the React app and display it. You can have another area. This is maybe using Angular too. No problem. You can also see here different versions are no problem, or completely fancy new stuff. They all go together. So maybe for many use cases, this will already help you in choosing. Great. So now that you're encouraged and want to go and build your complete micro front-end and slice everything, start small. Start maybe with 2. You can already learn everything you need to learn from 2. If you have 100, you have 100 problems, then you only have 2 problems. That's much nicer. We stayed in the same repository, so maybe you know this mono-repo stuff. It's, for us, really helpful. If you refactor, it's easy. You can do it with one commit. You don't have to have dependencies, how they are deploying later. And your IDE will help you a lot there. And it's easier to also see the changes. We have naming conventions. That's quite nice, because if everyone is using his own, it might get messy what they mean. So if you have a bit of convention here and say, also if your teams are independent, but if you agree on a bit, how shall it be done, you will go quite good there. And for the UI, we have a living style guide. So all our UI components have a demo code to show off, so you can see them. And if you're looking for a fancy button, you can just go and see what someone else already built. You could also, if you see at one point, oh, we need a registration pop-up, then you can go and see, okay, there are already pop-ups. I can just include those. Great. So if you now sadly know you have to break up, please start a new love story. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we've got a few minutes for questions before lunch, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Aye, over there.
Yeah, hello.
Hey.
You showed us the watch list page, I think it was called. How are you handling with these widgets? For instance, you had a friends widget, which certainly does not belong to the watch list service, but should belong to the friend list service. So are they served together with this services micro site or not?
Yeah, so we had the same consideration in the beginning. So you could either say like everything in the app shell is just one thing in one microservice. Then those 2 widgets have to be in the same one. Or you can decide and say, okay, every widget is independently and it can be anywhere. But this might lead, especially if you have different frameworks, that if you have 5 widgets with 5 different frameworks, you're serving 5 of those. So it's a completely decision but you have to make between those. So we decided to have the complete one. So everything that is on your profile is one microservice. If you would later decide one of those widgets you want to reuse, you would either have to copy or to extract it somewhere. But yeah, it's I think the most parting decision you make. If you go with one approach, the other one will be really hard, but you get the benefits there.
Okay. Is anything over there? No. Okay. Then there.
Hi. Could you go back to the images you had where you showed the gene pool with the backend and the front end, and how the microservices in the backend were kind of like helping out?
Oh, in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, then I start from the beginning. Otherwise, I'll.
So my question was basically, so effectively what you said is like microservices. Yeah, keep going, like right there. So microservices on the backend kind of help you kind of vertically separate the concerns, but in the front end you still have the mix and match. Is the intent to make it so that you actually can have the vertical go all the way up to the front end, or do you actually still have a separate set of verticals in the front end?
So if I now drew the image, if it would be like just slices?
Because you could have, like, technically speaking, 10 microservices on the front end, whereas you only have 4 on the back end still.
Yes. So the setup we did, yes, it's completely independent. So the micro front ends have their backend, and they call different microservices as they like. But this mostly depends how we slice the microservices to be like question, answer, profile, user, and you have to grab different information to be able to have one meaningful micro front end.
Okay, so
So it would be like, now it would be, I think, 4 front ends to 20 microservices in the backend.
I see. Is that ideal, or is that just like basically the world as the way it is right now?
So for us, it's ideal. I think if you're more in departments, so if you would have a completely department that is just concerned with checkout, I think it would make sense to more align those and to have like this one micro front end for this use case, right. And then it's one team and separate, and you can have it there. Yeah.
Cool. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
Can you load your small shells, so your small services, from another domain, or it has to be in the same domain? Do you have some XHR problematic, like, I mean...
You mean the routing, if you can route to different servers? So if they have to run under the same domain?
Yes.
I would recommend, because the browser doesn't like if you load stuff from a different domain. So you at least should have some domain as a like interface to approach. Otherwise, it might be a bit hard.
But it's possible
to load. I'm not sure if you can go around all Chrome that is checking for what you load in the backside. So you might have some concerns there.
Okay.
Thank you. Another question?
But sorry, what you could always do is like have something in between that will just bundle it and then ship it under that one domain. Then you're fine. So even if you have different stuff in the background, if you put one border that is grabbing the stuff and then serving it, just an NGX server or something, that might work to just go around the browser, not trusting your different domains.
Okay, another?
Hi, great talk, thank you. So you said that you don't have a one-to-one coupling between your front ends and your services. So do you have, do you let your front ends talk directly to the backend services, or do you have some kind of layer in the middle?
Yeah, we have a backend for the front end. So there's a backend in between that will grab the data and accumulate the data. And then, so it's tightly coupled. The front end has one specific backend for itself, and then it will call the microservices. And I completely can recommend doing that. If the front end starts to call all those, this will get messy and we'll have a lot of problems. You have to then deal in the front end, and this will mix and get huge. So everything you can do already on a backend for the front end should do that there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I see another question.
Do you do any server-side rendering at all?
Server-side rendering? Yeah. We started that for the locked-out part because we had to do that for 0 reasons, so that you completely have, and it's also much faster, so really prefer that. If you can do that, yeah. And we kept it for the locked-in area as well, because we liked how it's done, and it makes it super easy. So, but yeah, you could also go without. It's no problem. But it helped for us very much to have that on the server side.
All right. So now is lunch, and please remember that there is another buffet on this side upstairs. Okay.
Thank you.